Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being here. I am very, very excited to be coming to you live over the course of the weekend here. If you can't, if you're watching this on the replay, there's going to be 3 more of these. That's why I broke it up to give everybody a chance to be here on your schedule. And we're going to get right into it with the first 4 pieces in Suzuki Book 1. A comprehensive practice guide here of what to do. So we have these 4 variations here in Twinkle. Make sure we're in tune here. And of course, the first thing to say about any Suzuki piece, well, any piece you're learning, but you know, it is part of Suzuki method when you start here in the beginning is to make sure you are listening to the recordings. That's number 1. And you should always be listening ahead. So if we're working on Twinkle here at the beginning of Book 1, we should be listening to French folk song, Lightly Row, Song of the Wind, Rhodey, listening to all of those things there. Going forward in the book. That is so very important. Okay, all right, as an extremely important part of playing here. Okay, and also some new things to add here to this. I was just editing a video I'm going to upload later today, talking about tone, and of course that's why we have the tonalizations in Suzuki. We should always be focused on those. Okay, but let's get into it here with variation 1. Hopefully you're tuned up if you're playing along here. So, or variation A as they call it in the book, which is the... let me actually get my other bow out here. You know, if you're learning this, hopefully... Maybe you have some tape on your bow. I have my taped up bow right here. Let's trade that out, actually. This is really important. I find that this is, if you're at the very beginning here of Book 1, I find that this is pretty important to have this tape on here for a couple of reasons. One is, sometimes, as a beginner, we're having trouble with the tone. We're actually using too much bow, okay? So actually having the tape on here, you know, some students don't use enough, and actually using this little bit of bow here from the red to the yellow is actually a challenge, okay? And so we want to make sure they're using enough. But then I've also found that actually by limiting the amount of bow that we're using here, it forces us just to get the weight in there. Also, limiting the amount of bow helps with the bow hold, right? Because when I get out here into, you know, the upper half of the bow like this is a brand new discussion, right? Of what we need to do with the arm weight and pronating in the fingers and all this stuff. And so having this tape on here. Between the tapes. And the new thing that I'm really pushing in the studio, that I'm really trying to get everyone to be cognizant of and do, is the stop part, okay? One of the things that affects the tone, that affects musical playing, that affects, gosh, so many things that we are doing while we're playing is this finger action, okay, right here, all right? And by stopping the bow, making sure I do really, really great staccatos, okay, on those, on the 8th notes, right? That really needs to be stop, taka, taka, stop, Mississippi, stop, okay? Whatever words you're using in there, make sure we have a stop. This is number 1. I would encourage this before I would even talk about the left hand, okay, before I would ever talk about intonation stuff. Of course, we're talking about intonation, ringing tones. That's all very, very important, and we should also be, practicing, of course, this rhythm on our D major scale. Also, from the very beginning, I am thinking about my hand shape. Yes, okay, rounded fingers. Whoops, rounded thumb over here. Yes, all right, all the way through from the beginning, from the very first variation. All right, I'm adjusting my elbow height correctly. I'm checking my hand shape. Okay, all the way through this, through every variation from the very beginning, I'm checking this stuff. Yeah? Okay. Now, that's variation A. All right, and of course, I would set a metronome goal for this from the very beginning, okay? And, maybe as a beginner, you're having trouble playing along to the metronome. Because the perpetual motion, which we're going to get to later, is 105, I always have it as a goal because it's real easy to play these two slow. It's really important that you turn on the metronome, okay, that you're setting this metronome goal from the very beginning here. Excuse me. From the very beginning with playing it, getting it up to 105, okay? Maybe you need to start slower. That's fine, all right? Make sure you're playing the rhythm on the scale with the metronome. All right, this is really, really important. Let's move on to variation B here because we have several variations to get through. Variation B, the Dr. Suzuki says practice and practice. All right, it can be very, very helpful to put the words or put some words with this variation. The whole thing. Again, the stop with the fingers. This is really important. All right, this is something that maybe I've said a little bit too, all right, but you're going to hear me say it a lot more here going forward and in the future, is that the stop part, in variation B here, all the notes are staccato. And that is to force these fingers, okay, into a certain action. Yes, we have to learn to loosen up, and playing fast does do some of that for us. But it doesn't happen automatically, all right? And that's my big epiphany here lately, is that this finger action, we have to check in on it separately, okay? And that's what's in the video coming out later. And so when you're doing variation B, all right, this is a really, really important variation. I mean, they're all important for their own reasons, but this one is really, really important because it is all stop bows, yes? So all the way through, I'm thinking about stop, and when I say stop, I mean really hard stop. That's really important, okay? All right, stopping the bow, constantly stopping the bow there on the string all the way through this variation, all the way to the end. And again, I'm checking in on my left hand. Rounded fingers. Rounded thumb. Okay. Oh, rounded thumb. Okay. That goes without saying. All right. I want to focus in on the specific things that change here during these pieces and during the variations. But of course, if I'm a beginner at the very beginning of book one, of course, I'm checking my elbow height, making sure my fingers aren't collapsing all the way through these variations. All right. Then I'm staying around. Don't want this. Don't want the claw. Right. We want rounded, arched fingers all the way through here, okay, through this thing. Very, very important. No matter what I'm doing, that my elbow height is adjusted correctly, that I'm not doing one of these, right? All right. I don't want extremes, all right? Rounded fingers. I'm looking over here in my reflection. Of course, you should always be practicing in front of the mirror, always, okay? I'm keeping a great contact point. I'm making sure this is bent. Bow hold, okay? All right. There's lots of videos here on the channel about bow hold. All right, so make sure we're holding the bow correctly. All right, but specific to variation B, what do I got to make sure that I'm listening to and doing in variation B? That's what I got to be thinking of. Okay, stop, stop bows. Right, stop, stop bows. Forgive me 1 second there. I'm buzzing. Okay, sorry about that. All right, now let's go to variation C. Down, pony, up, pony. Again, let's use our tape, all right? And also we see the staccato again on the 8th note, right? Got to have that stop bow. Got to have that stop bow. Now, I think one thing to focus on, the mistake that students make, is trying to do too much bow on the pony, on the 16th note, right? Down, pony, up, pony, down, pony. The short notes, the little notes, the 16th notes really should be just on either side of the tape, right? I used to be so specific and very, very scientific. There was a time when I would put actually 2 pieces of tape here. I don't do that anymore. That's a little too exacting, all right? It just gets confusing. I just now say on either side of the tape, okay? So you have one thing to focus on visually here. I wouldn't put 2 pieces of tape here and say, play this tiny little bow. All right, so, but beginners, when we're first learning this variation, the tendency is to do one of these and use the same amount of bow, all right, for the short notes as we do for the longer notes. And of course what we get is that slippery sound because we're using too much bow, right? So we want... It goes without saying through all of these variations, you notice that I'm doing this a lot on open strings, right? A lot on open strings. Oh, somebody said long wiggle, long wiggle. Oh, I love that. All right, string wiggle, favorite exercise. Okay, all right. Or actually, I would say, Amanda loves music. I would change that to stop, wiggle, stop, wiggle. I might start doing that. All right. Gotta always, it's just like on my mind now. Gotta have that stop in there. Stop, wiggle, stop, wiggle. Okay. All right. Every time. Stopping the bow. And again, metronome. Now, when we get to variation C, I find in class, okay, in 6th grade orchestra where I teach, and in lessons that, we get to variation C. We call this a reverse bowing pattern because we're going down, short, short, up, short, short. It changes, okay? The different beats of the measure are opposites of each other. Yes? Okay. So this one's really hard to play fast, all right? It's hard to keep up with the metronome. So hopefully we've been practicing with the metronome. Maybe we've been going like 80 or 85. Even I was going a little slow. It's really important that we keep our eye on that 105 goal here. And this is the biggest mistake. If I had one big something to warn everyone about when it comes to these twinkle variations, is that you can't play them too slow, okay? You must learn to go fast from the beginning. Now, maybe it takes a while. Maybe it takes a few months even, okay? I spend a lot of time on these twinkle variations with students so that we get things set, we get all this hand shape set. We might spend 6 months on the twinkles. Maybe we're playing some French folk song and we're doing some lightly row, okay? But the speed piece, getting these things fast, is really, 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 I cannot stress enough, all right, that if you don't start learning to go fast soon enough, it just becomes a big, huge problem later. Really big, huge problem later. So, as you can tell, going 105 here. It's fast. It's fast. I actually used to ask for it even faster, and I realized that was a little bit much. Okay, so we settled on 105 because that's where perpetual motion needs to be when we get there later on, as we're going to talk about this afternoon. Okay, variation D. Now, depending on what book, as I'm looking at my book does not have the triplets in it, but they changed it recently. I'm glad they put the triplets back in. So the new variation D is triplets, which is wonderful. Again, let's make sure we're going fast enough. Notice I'm keeping my fingers nice and loose. That's the triplets. I would not, it's a little too fast. I would not be trying to do stop bows. Okay, this is for a different something that we're trying to learn here, right? Trying to learn to loosen up this wrist. Yes. Okay. All right, loosen up this wrist. Keep these fingers loose. And of course, variation. Well, D in the old printing, E in the new printing, the 16th notes. Okay. Definitely, what I do with this is that we start thinking about 16th notes, or the straight 16th notes from the very beginning. Okay, so on the scale. So probably what we're doing here while we're doing variation A and B and C and D is when we get to E, so we're probably going to do some 16th notes, even starting like, say, 70. On the scale. Learning to stay steady, learning to stay with the metronome. Of course, playing along to the recording helps. And remember, you can slow down a YouTube video. It keeps the video at pitch. All right, it's a great way to practice slow, but with the accompaniment. And then I'm going to crank this up. I'm not as much focused on tape at this point as I am the tone. All right, I am listening. I don't want that slidey overtone sound. I'm focused on loose wrist. Is my bow hold great? Are my fingers staying where they're supposed to? And we don't go faster on the metronome if we don't have tone. All right, and we're doing this all the while on the scale, getting it up to 105. Getting it up to 105. And that's variation E, or D if you're looking at the old book. It's the new E, right? 16th notes. Okay. Let's get to the theme, okay? And that 16th notes, I'm really picky about getting that up to 105 before we let it go. Okay, of course, we never let any of these go. We just keep on playing them. But getting it to 105, getting this wrist loose with a great tone, right? It's not just getting through the notes, okay? It's, again, left hand shape, arm, all the things are in place, yes, and we're playing it up to tempo, and the tone is there. Yeah? Let me just, make sure you can see my bow a little bit better there. All right? Forgive me. Okay, now, let's talk about the theme. I always teach the theme two ways, right? It's in the book, Marcato, okay? Again, with the dots, and you know why. It's because of the stop bows. Right? And using and actually slowing down the bow, using the same amount of bow, but slowing it down for the half notes is a good thing. All right? It's a very good thing to teach the hand to go slow there. All right? I would also suggest that you do the stop bows on the marcato, on the staccatos. I would also suggest that you do it legato. fingers have to exert this action on the bow. All right, the wrist has to stay loose, okay, for different reasons, but it's the same action. And students, I think, should learn that from the beginning. This is not, it's that important, right? It's not necessarily super advanced, okay? And all of these things are meant to force you into these correct motions. Yes, all right. The stop forces you to grab the bow in the right part of your fingers, hopefully, all right? Teacher's staying on top of you about that. And then legato, all right, we're loose for a different reason, but same loose action here. Again, I'm staying between the tapes for the tone. Most students at this stage need this limitation of the little bows, okay, to get the weight into the bow. This is really, really, really important, okay? All right, so this is a rundown here of the Twinkle variations. And we're going to go on. If you have any questions as we're going along here, love to answer questions. We're going to move on to French folk song. Okay, what are we focused on in French folk song? We talked a lot about the right hand here in the Twinkle, and you know that's just how it goes. Left hand goes without saying. But let's do focus on the left hand here for a second. By the time I get to French folk song, I should be playing really, really great ringing tones. Yes, because this thing actually starts on a ringing tone. Whenever you hear me do that little test, I'm listening for the ringing tone. Let's see if you can hear it ring through the microphone. Hear it keep ringing. Or up here. This is what gives the instrument its beautiful sound. And so here in Twinkle, we are thinking about ringing tones. If that finger is not that fourth finger is not landing on the ringing tone every single time, you got to fix it. All right, this is where this really has to be nailed down. Depending on where we are with tone and bow use, I would say, I'm still playing in the lower half, right? I'm still playing down here because I'm only in the second piece here in the first book. I'm still a beginner. I'm still learning. Got to get this weight into the arm, right? And again, just like we were talking about in the Twinkle theme, it is a very good skill to slow this bow down on the long notes because those are at the end of the phrase, right? And using this slow bow, and we're going to get to this in Rhody, slow bows on the phrase, it helps us phrase. It helps us make the phrase, helps us make the diminuendo as we go down there. Yes, I know all about. See, read the comments here. I know all about the Twinkle bows. That's something I've yet to do. It's always on my mind to do that, to get some small bows, some short bows, to force the weight. I've thought about it also in my orchestra class. All the violins playing too much in the upper half. Now that's a great idea. Is to actually use an actual shortened bow. Something else that comes to mind since we're talking a little bit more about the left hand here in French folk song. My own habit that I love to focus on is that sometimes I get a little relaxed, I get a little sloppy, and it's like my finger is reaching up around. I love referencing the reflection here on the screen so that I can force my index finger to be in the same trajectory, the same shape as the rest of my fingers. Otherwise, it's real easy to do one of these. And I notice a lot of students doing this lately, okay? The mirror ensures, what I'm talking about here is my index finger doing not this. Yeah, this is bad. So I can have my elbow up and I can still have my index finger in kind of this bad spot. Okay. I want this one. Yeah. I want my index finger. And sometimes it's just a matter of getting my hand turned into a better position. Now some teachers will add a little piano, a little echo here, all right, when it starts on the first finger section there. I'm talking about measure 12 there on the French folk song. And of course, all of this is really legato. That phrase. Slowing the bow down. A lot of students will want to do this. And rip the bow at the end. Oh, this is a big no-no, right? Big no-no, because, we're going to the frog, we're getting to the heavy part of the bow. We don't make a crescendo. Yes, we don't make a crescendo there to the frog. Legato, steady tone, doing the phrases, slowing the bow down, the long notes. I'm thinking about my left hand, ringing tones all the way through. All right, let's move on to lightly row. And of course, the big teaching point here in lightly row are the tunnel fingers. What is a tunnel finger? Okay. A tunnel finger is when my finger is rounded and I'm able to leave it down while I play on a higher string. Okay. This is what, and tunnel fingers, it isn't just for lightly row, right? So it makes this wonder, it sounds really hard, right? Actually, it's all in my right hand. Look, notice my left hand. That's how I stay in tune in something like the box suite. Notice my fourth finger. Even when I go to play on the A, and the reason we call it tunneled, I can show you here, is that it stays rounded enough that my A string can still vibrate even though this is down. Okay, if it's not tunneled and I'm accidentally hitting the A string like this, my fourth finger's touching, I gotta learn to round it up enough without being cramped. I don't have to come all the way over. I really want to just come over just enough, okay, that I can hear the A string ring. In lightly row, it says they have this line, they have the third finger number, and they have this line that says keep the third finger down. Okay, and this is exactly what you're supposed to do. Notice my third finger doesn't come. This also helps with the intonation, right? Once I've found the note and my note is into, my finger is in tune there on the F sharp, I want to leave it there. That's going to help me stay in tune if I've already found the note. It's just a more efficient way of playing. And this happens 3 times here in the lightly row. It happens at the end of the second line. I think also you could just leave it down at the beginning of the piece and in measure 13. It's not marked there. I say leave it down as much as possible. And as far as tape on the bow, maybe I'm using a little bit more bow, but again, if I'm needing to focus on tone, if I'm finding that I'm not getting the kind of sound that I need, I'm going to limit my bow and I'm only going to use this part of the bow for the whole piece, right? That's going to help me get a nice, strong tone. Okay, moving on. Song of the Wind. Again, we got some, we don't call them, I guess they're kind of like tunnel fingers. We have some markings here where it says keep the first finger down. Again, that's just to be more efficient with our playing. Now the big teaching point here in Song of the Wind, going back to the left hand, is that when I'm keeping my first finger down, looking at my reflection, again, we don't want this, right? Oh, this is going to mess us up bad if I'm doing this reach up, reach around, all right, to get up here. I got to make sure that my arm is supporting my hand. Doesn't have to be up here, right? Remember, we don't want one of these, right? We want this to be straight like this, okay? Fingers rounded. But what I see, the big mistake that I see students make here in Song of the Wind is they go yum, bum, bum, and twist to get back to the A string. This is the big no-no in Song of the Wind. It's got to be yum, bum, hop, right? It's a very short distance, but I guess if you were looking at it under a microscope, let me do this. The first finger is kind of turning slightly, right, to get back and forth. And what I'm focused on is keeping these rounded. And I'm doing this little hop. I never bar in Song of the Wind. That's just something, I think that's a little too advanced depending on age of the student. But look, even if you're an adult or a teenager or whatever, and you're working on Song of the Wind, your hand just isn't strong enough yet, right? And so trying to bar these fingers, I can do it now, but boy, I could form such a terrible bad habit with this little finger if I did that all the time. So I always teach it, leave the first finger down as the piece instructs, but then hop. I'm learning to hop between fourth finger on the D string and fourth finger on the A string. Retake. Okay, all right, hop, hop. Don't twist, don't roll. Oh man, this is so bad when I see this one, all right? This, I gotta maintain this over here. Yum, bum, bum, yum, bum, bum, yum, bum, bum. Okay, to get over here between the G and the A string. Now, the retakes, okay, which is the other big teaching point here in Song of the Wind. There are 3 of them. The first 2 bow retakes, okay, so maybe your teacher has called them circle sets or bow retakes. I love the term bow touch because it reminds us to be silent. Set. Set. I will often have students say the word set during the quarter rest, okay, as we're learning the first 2 phrases or the first 6 measures of this piece. Yes. Set. Okay, you get a little bit longer. Now, what's challenging about Song of the Wind is that in measure 10, the circle set or the bow retake is a different speed. There is no rest, right? So this one happens a little faster. And so they're different. The first 2 are the same, and then the third one is different from the first 2. So it looks like this. It's very small, right? The circle has to be quick, and I have to set very fast. Set. I still say the word set. Because, look, here's the mistake that gets made in bow retakes. If the actual movement and getting back to the frog, if it were truly rhythmical, you'd be late every time, right? If I'm getting to the string at the time that I'm supposed to make sound, I'm late. I have to be to the string before the note is supposed to sound, right? So in slow motion, set. And then I get to keep going. Let's do that again. Set. A little faster. Set. Do it again. Set. See that? All right, I'm setting the bow really quickly, which means I got to make the quarter note really fast, okay? All right, still doing the lift, still coming back to the frog, all of that. I think it's important that you learn to do it correctly in measure 4 and in measure 6 and get really great at that before you move on and try to practice it in the other spot in Song of the Wind, okay? That's my recommendation, is that learn to do it really, really well when you have the time, when you have that quarter rest to do it. Set. Nice and slow. Set. All right. So There's the left-hand stuff, the bow retake stuff, and last but not least from Song of the Wind is our first ever sequence, right? Where you have a certain group of notes behaving a certain way, and then you lower them down in range in the staff, and you have them behave the same way. Meaning, we're going note, down a step, step, note, down a step, step, note, down a step, step. All right, it's a little sequence. And so often students will have trouble playing the right number of notes here. Oh, and by the way, something I forgot there in variation E from Twinkle when we're doing all our 16th notes. If you're really having trouble playing with the metronome, we do this all the time, or you're having trouble playing the right number of notes, put a gap in between. And this is a wonderful little practice tool. I'll show you on the Twinkle first. Rest, rest. Okay, so transfer that to Song of the Wind. Let's do each measure, and we're going to put a big space, 2 beats. So it's like we're going to play a measure, rest a measure, play a measure, rest a measure. Okay, you could also do this in lessons with your teacher, all right, where I play, you play. So if you have your cello out right now, all right, just repeat after me. Here we go. Now, you. Now, you are repeating. Next measure. Now, you. Yum, bum, bum, bum. Now, you. Now, listen. Next measure. Just like that, okay? So what I would do, if I was playing this by myself, is get ready for the next one. And all right, I put exactly 2 beats. Oh, I was going a little slow. Forgot about my 105. Don't forget, okay? Or if I'm learning, if I'm doing this part, maybe I slow it down to 90. Right? By doing a measure at a time like this, I'm guaranteeing that I understand what notes are supposed to be played in this measure, right? These notes are played at this time. Because a lot of times students will play right? They'll play an extra E at the beginning of 10 because they want to keep the sequence going, all right? But that's not what's written. It's got to be also just talking about the sequence helps, all right? Talking through it, understanding, like what is the pattern of the notes, right? Like we talk about in Pattern Play by Winifred Crock. It's a great, wonderful book, okay? So we have the A, and then it steps down. And we play the G, right? 3 times, or 1 and 2, and then the note that the previous measure ended on is the beginning of the next measure. So we have G, F sharp, then the F sharp starts the next measure, F sharp, E, 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 all right? To go down to the D, yes, all right? Talking through it helps. Playing one measure at a time helps, all right? But this whole sequence business in Song of the Wind can kind of trip students up, all right? So my favorite method here lately is the space in between, okay? We talk through it and all that, but like I play, student plays, and we say, we're going to do just this measure, do one measure at a time, all right? So that you understand how each measure functions, all right, in the music, okay? All right, wow. You stayed with me. That's all the Twinkles, French folk song, lightly wrote, and Song of the Wind. Oh, and I did leave out one thing, Song of the Wind. I'm still going with my stop bows, right? I'm still teaching these fingers over here. All right, exerting this on the frog every time. Every time I have the opportunity to do so, all right? And Song of the Wind is definitely a piece where I can do that, okay? All right, all the time, all the time, all the time, all the time. Yes? All right. All right, I will be back this afternoon with the other pieces. All right, go tell Aunt Rhodey. Go tell Aunt Rhodey through perpetual motion. I was trying to say perpetual motion at the same time. All right, I will see you then. I hope you tune in. If you have any questions, you could go ahead and be commenting on that video. I appreciate you guys for being with me, for sticking with me here, and we're going to be doing this all weekend. There's 3 more of these to come. We're going to do the entire Suzuki Book 1. It's It's awesome. I'll see you next time.